y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast.
This is going to be a really exciting week because we have been waiting to talk to Ninaki, who also goes by Atma Livpriya, for some time now. The universe had so many obstacles in our way, but it's finally happening.
Yay!
Yes, here we are.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so thrilled to speak with you. And, I think it would be great to hear a little bit about your background and also your practice and how you found craniosacral therapy.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me, ladies. I think with any of these practices and how I kind of came into then, creating my own private practice, it was really just about meeting myself on my journey. And, how profound that was. And, I needed to share that wisdom and the teachings and that experience for other people to be able to kind of reclaim, their sovereignty and meet their divine power. Craniosacral therapy is, within theory and praxis, it's definitely a territory that's a bit difficult to explain because it's something that needs to be experienced. But in honoring, the polarities of Western synthesis and of many health wisdom, traditions, the foundation of craniosacral therapy and polarity therapy, which are both modalities that I incorporate within session, are very ancient, and it applies Eastern medicine as well as Western medicine to include osteopathy and naturopathy, so as a synthesis of all of these wisdoms, but also organized around the main principle that everything is made up of energy. Everything that we see is energy. And that energy has natural laws and based within these certain laws that are consistent with nature and the human paradigm. At the heart of those laws exists how Dr. Randolph Stone would describe it. It's a triune function where the laws of polarity exist as energy in motion, energy in expression, and energy as sensation. And this is a polarity planet. So how we actually even experience the range, is a grand spectrum. But it's a force, and you can feel it. You can sense that polarity within the world. And the polarity for life is what maintains the dynamic tension for life to exist in a healthy way. It's magnetic. I think the electromagnetic nature of life, it lives inside of us, and it's also underneath a biochemical blueprint in the physical nature of this reality. And you can access that reservoir of source. At any time. Clinically, it's craniosacral therapy is based on the research of, the brain, the spine, the dural tube, and the cerebral spinal fluid. So we're working with the actual architecture that houses the spinal cord. So the space between the actual cord, the vertebral spine, as well as the surroundings in and around the brain. It's a balancing technique. When you come into session, we're improving the fluid exchange by removing any type of transient and minor restrictions of the tissues that surround itself and kind of crystallize within the brain and within the spinal cord. And we all know that when any of these types of restrictions or held patterns begin to take place and take hold within the body, it's going to interfere. It's going to interfere with the mobility of the network of how your brain is actually sending and receiving signals to the rest of the body. And these restrictions, it compromises. And, it's like our bodies will always learn to cope with it, but it doesn't mean to say that over time we will begin to lose that kind of integrity that exists from of just being able to kind of release and discharge in a kind of regular sequence.
Can you describe what craniosacral actually looks like
Yes.
physically? Because I feel like somebody has done that, like a little bit of the technique to me, and I'm not totally sure. And so I feel like it kind of looks a certain way, or there's like certain a physicality about it that's like very specific. But yeah, I'd love to like kind of understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, I think a typical session can include, it's going to involve there's touch, there's light touch, kind of we're tuning, there's rocking, there's deep pressure, there's joint mobilization, there's kind of contact points where it's like I'm accessing and holding particular cranial holds. And, it's like, I think within the practitioner and client perspective, it can feel like a tidal wave inside from somebody kind of looking at, a session taking place. It might not even actually look like anything unless there's like a somato-emotional release taking place where the body is actually unwinding the existence of that consciousness of a trauma that took place years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's like within craniosacral is dealing with the cranium, the spine, the pelvis. It's the energy that's mobilizing the fluid and the soft tissue. So I can, literally just have my finger on you or just a flat palm on you. But what's actually taking place is your inner physician becomes activated. It's like my job is really just to hold space, that everything that you come into contact with and everything in your field within our session, we just give it space to breathe. There's no judgment. It's just kind of like a neutral allowance for anything that you have encountered has an opportunity to resolve and dissolve itself, because these messages that exist within the body are signals, that there's a particular resonance that needs to be decoded in order for you to kind of come back into balance. So it's beautiful.
This sounds incredible.
It is. And
I
you know
know.
what? And the other way that I try to, when I explain it, it's like, go get a session. Like people really need to wake up to these energetic qualities and possibilities of their bodies. And, that doesn't always happen when you're sitting in meditation, or it's like there's something magical that happens when you come in for session and you lay down and you're in the field of a practitioner that's holding the intelligence of your innate wisdom, that the potential of your health is viable. I think so often, even within our healthcare, it's like, it's skewed toward a direction of disease, and it's not about our well-being. So all of a sudden you're a statistic, or you're being read, you're being assigned and prescribed based on these outdated models of Western literature. And it's like we know now that within, it's like even the Schumann resonance, it's like the electromagnetic field. Yeah. It's like the field of how we actually are a reflection of the earth, and how the electromagnetic field of our own heart, is a global frequency. And, it's like we are very much a part of the cosmos, and they live inside of us.
Okay, this is a perfect segue actually to a very big question I have that kind of jumps back to when you were speaking at the beginning about polarity, because I was recently reading about how the poles are shifting on the earth right now. And I just started learning about the Schumann resonance, and we've been following it, and like all these crazy surges have been happening. I mean, yesterday there was like literally a small tornado outside my house, like right as one started.
Wow.
Yeah. But as I'm reading about this, like the polarity of the earth shifting, I'm like, this is huge. And most people don't even know that that's happening. And so I'm curious how that relates to our polarity inside of our bodies, and sort of like from a craniosacral therapy perspective, what does that mean?
So, I think if we look at what the actual Schumann resonance is. It's a global frequency that discharges within the cavity formed by the Earth's surface. So the Earth is this kind of like negatively charged with electrons, and the atmosphere is positively charged. And then there's this gradient between, and the humans, we, us, we're experiencing this kind of incarnational experience, and we're connected between both the atmosphere and the earth, as above, so below. And that connection is vital to the polarities of our own bodies, because, we're walking around like these human antennas. We're a wireless current of energy, and we are constantly transmitting and receiving signals. And, not only in those receiving of signals, we're also absorbing other people's fields and other people's energy. And if you don't know how to discern what is yours and what is the other, it's like, then you're just kind of like, you're loading up on a regular basis. And also even now, all we do is we wear rubber on the soles of our feet. We brush our hair with plastic, so we are just becoming more and more disconnected with the earth, which makes our sensitivity and our inability to be able to kind of ground ourselves properly. It's like we're never kind of like neutralizing and restoring the polarity within our own body, which is what's creating the chronic inflammation. It's what's creating the digestive problems, the metabolic sluggishness, and within a session, it's like where CST is definitely dealing more with kind of like the structural and kind of like the fluid exchange that's taking place within the soft and hard tissues, and I'm also dealing with the dialogue of your inner physician. Polarity goes a little bit beyond that, because it's taking into consideration all of the energetic systems of the body. So it's the chakras, the meridians, the auric field, the energy of the nervous system, the energy of the digestive system. It's also including the archetypal presence of the zodiac and how that's mapped on the body. So all of that lives within the polarity medicine model.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful. I think it's, the underlying goal is that, we're moving the body back into balance. Life needs to flow to be healthy, and it needs to have that continuity of movement. It's like we have to create that orbit within ourselves where we then become, this like amplifier for the universe to be like, I got you, like I got you, and I'm aligned with you. So like wherever you want to go, like I've got your back, and I'm going to be like pushing that force to make sure that, you are held within the divine.
So is the shifting polarity of the actual earth part of the whole ascension process? And is the way it's affecting us kind of part of that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, it's like the matrix is being challenged right now. I think even, you look at, what's taking place, and, there is a higher agenda. Mm-hmm. And we also need to not be so commanded by that hypnotic pulse that's taking place, that is can very easily be distracting us from what the goal is, and which is to come back to center, to reconnect with the earth. And I think that, the pole shifting is really just wanting the human to expand its consciousness and its awareness to the subtle body system. It's like our experience as humans doesn't stop at our skin. It's like we have this magnetic field, we have these subtle bodies, we have an aura, and it's like we're not taught this. Like, this isn't something that is expressed and written within
school or anything.
Exactly. You look up, like an anatomy chart, it's not going to show you where the arc line is, but the arc line, but your arc line is essentially the nucleus of your aura. And you can create resiliency within that just by knowing how to work with the technology that is your body. It's like you have this vehicle, and if you don't know how to drive it properly, then where are you going? Where are you going?
That's so well put.
Yeah. I was just going to ask a little bit about where you started to learn all of this incredible information, and also a little bit about your spiritual name and how that came to be.
Yes. I think we have a very dear friend in common. And,
Yes.
I think probably about, I think it was like 7 to 8 years ago. God, I met Kat Lowe, and, I started to kind of go deep into the world of Reiki. Reiki was, like my aunt was a Reiki master. And so that was kind of like my first, instinct of being able to kind of sense a world that I know that I was able to see in other people. And I didn't know how to explain that to anybody around me. And when
you could see energy as a child.
I could see energy. I had, experiences with, I think, to call them galactic beings or, the paranormal, like these were just kind of like friends of mine. And it wasn't something that I was ever fearful of. It was just more, it's like, well, how do I command them? How do I call them in when I need them? How do I know how to like hear them when I'm speaking to them? So it was really about like me. Kat was my first teacher. She was that first person. I mean, even when I met her, it was like, we're picking up in this lifetime because where we left off in the last lifetime. It was just like a very clear moment of just knowing each other. But she very much helped me remember, like mystically and energetically, like who I was. So, she stewarded the teachings and attunements of, to be a Reiki master. I also did the reconnection with her, which was, a pretty like momentous shift that was taking place, in my life.
What's the reconnection?
The reconnection is, it's reconnecting you to the axial grid lines of the earth.
Wow.
It's pretty phenomenal. I think I had done all my attunements with Kat, and then I did the reconnection, and she mentioned Moldavite, and I started working with Moldavite, and it was like, okay, just like be prepared for your world to just not only come crumbling down, because it just needs to recalibrate itself to how you need to move forward. So, it's you have to be prepared that if you want to align yourself with what your destiny is, the reconnection is going to do that for you.
Whoa.
Wow.
I'm like, I've got to try this.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. But I think with where I was when I first met her, I was studying Enochian magic. I was reading Israel Regardie, Aleister Crowley, Helena Blavatsky. So I was definitely kind of like tapping into the darker portions of magic and the occult. Because I think that there was the curiosity of just kind of going down the rabbit hole in the Hermetic arts. It was fascinating. But I think she definitely was the one of just kind of like learning to balance both the dark and the light, of not being ever able to kind of like shun one or the other. It's just being able to kind of, how do you hold the two? Because here we are, it's a polarity planet. You can't just, for those that are just going to be, like that, the light is the way to go. You also have to be able to kind of know how to hold the darkness, because the darkness is also what exists within the world. And, it's like you see the pain and you see the suffering that's happening. And, we are all embodied and imprinted with those conditions that live inside of us. I think the the floodgates, though, I mean, of sacred sciences, that was my gold mine. I think at the same time that I had done my attunements with Kat, I'd also had started reading. I think his name is Fridtjof Capra. He wrote the Tao of Physics, where he was able to kind of put together the Eastern mystical thought or the Eastern way and matches it entirely with the physics and biochemistry and mathematics of the Western world. So it's a really incredible overlay of the cosmic and clinical theory in medicine.
Wow.
Yeah. And also, around that time, I started working with my Merkaba. And, I would meditate with this kind of sacred geometry drawing that I would whip up. And I would meditate and visualize myself in a spinning axis of these two prisms. So it was a little bit of a game that I would play with myself, where I would begin to move through life with this hologram. And in that playfulness, I was giving myself an experience. And I think in any type of sacred play where you are, you are commanding the presence of a substance that you might not necessarily are able to see, you activate it. And all of a sudden teachers started to appear. Like it wasn't, it was like the things that I wanted to dive deeper in, they just appear. It's like at a coffee shop or walking in a park and just kind of striking that conversation.
And that was shortly after you started working with the Merkaba
Yes.
visualization?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you doing it primarily for manifestation work, or was the intention something different?
The intention was that, to be able to see myself beyond the body, to be able to kind of, feel the sacred geometry, because I think in the foundation of how Earth is and how we come to be, it's the foundation of that is the elements. And deeper in that is the platonic solids. It's sacred geometry. And, it's like, yes, it's like even like the body, the body is just a projection of the mind. But, it's like we are a frequency, we are a light source. And in that light source is a very divine geometry that exists. And I had, I'd met a rabbi who I started to do some coursework with about learning, the deeper wisdom of the Hebrew letters and studying the Sefer Yetzirah. And I think it's the potency of being able to kind of learn that we, as energy, we are a vibration. So if you know how to work with numerology, if you know how to work with the sound current, you're able to tap into a kind of like a river. It's a river of energy where you can pull from and contribute to at any moment in time. It's alchemical. It's being able to kind of use your expression and use your experience in your body in an alchemical way.
Wow.
That is so cool. I'm like, I have to learn all of these things. I'm so fascinated by this.
And you just have to play, and I think that's like, where it really comes down to. It's like, how often, if you like look back even, when you were little, like what were those sacred play moments that you had, where you didn't have to explain it or convince it to anybody else. You were just in your own little world, and if you're able to kind of remember what that game was, it's like you knew, like at that moment you were already you're already connected, and it was just it's just about remembering, because it's like as we get older and then we are told how we have to operate and model ourselves, we just kind of like forget that sacredness.
As I'm like listening to you talk, I'm actually curious and wondering, because there's a part of you just embracing this about yourself and having had the experiences and the connections and relationships you've had with, you know, other I would say otherworldly beings as a child. Like there is this sort of like inner knowingness and
Mhm.
trust that I feel like you innately have, that so many of us, and I put myself in this ring,
Are
struggle with
searching for every
developing.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that trust, you know, and like I'm studying shamanic journeying right now and I'm realizing it's like my guides kind of pulled me or kind of pushed me to get into this study because I really needed to learn how to just trust. The curiosity is there, but it's like actually believing and knowing that you have this, I don't know, this ability to connect to this place or this world or this reality that's beyond what your five senses can actually detect. It takes so much self-trust and like eradicating self-doubt, I feel like is the almost like the 95% of
The
it,
biggest
you know.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it took a while. It took a long while to actually admit to half of the things that I was seeing and being able to kind of correlate and make connections to.
Mm.
And I think there's also, that little kind of like renegade rebel in me where it's like, I just don't care what other people think, you
That's
know? And, it's like, I know what I know that like my mission here is to be able to kind of experience the full expression of my life and to also hold space for others to be able to kind of witness that. And I think in, some of the experiences of working with teachers and, holding space for clients and just being able to kind of witness the incredible healing potential and possibility that can take place when somebody steps into your reality where it's like the body is not limited or restricted um, because of time and space,
Mhm.
and I think it's to be able to realize that you are not bounded by time and space. It's like, yes, the body has to calibrate and definitely doesn't move as quickly as the soul or the higher self. um, but this is where meditation comes into play.
Mm.
This is what having a practice comes into play. I think people have to be able to integrate and have an experience with themselves. And it's one thing to read it, and it's one thing to intellectualize it and be like, okay, like that's cool, I want to believe that, I want to do that, but it's like, okay, but what are you doing every day, like
Right.
to meet the divine, to meet the elements, to have a conscious relationship with the unseen world? And that takes work. That takes work, and it also takes um it's like you have to like work that muscle of what that looks like to other people, and just really not giving a shit, you know
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm just now starting to come around to that where I had this realization this morning. I was like, wow, there was a time where like putting anything out into the world, I had to really like dig deep, and it was a struggle.
Yeah.
And now I just have these like really peaceful moments where it just flows out of me, and it's like, then it's out, and then I move on with my day. And it's like, I'm like, thank God I finally got like this process is finally starting to flow, and I'm starting to like let go. And yet to your point, Ellen, trust. But man, it's like still some days I'm like, this is not happening.
Yeah. And that's, it's like, I think like being able to even sit with those moments of, okay, like why is the resistance there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like, and even just feeling that tension of like, it's like you feel your stomach just get into knots, and you're drafting that post and you're getting ready to send, and then it's like you post it, and it's like the release that takes place in your body. And it's like that's how every experience as humans we should be having any type of encounter.
Yeah.
We should
I
be able
love
to
that.
release it and be able to kind of train and condition our bodies to have that same experience. But it's like, oh, it's like if I grip it, It's like, because I'm reacting to it. It's like, yeah, you can react to it, but it also doesn't mean that it needs to like hook into you.
Right.
And it's like that hook is that interlocking is where you begin to lose yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been talking a lot recently about the idea that there's really no bad or good. Everything is just energy. It's literally just one force kind of creating an action in another force, and you need kind of the what we would term negative or bad in order to even come around to the good or the quote unquote positive, which again, it's like, I think we're the ones who are putting the meaning on that. But I'm curious how that relates to what we were talking earlier about like polarity, or if I'm understanding it right. Because to me, I'm almost kind of looking at it as a yin and yang sort of energy, and the need for both.
Yeah. I mean, polarity, it's, I think also within energy is not good or bad. It's just energy.
Right.
And I think,
Right.
you just, us being able to even unwind from the lexicon and the semantics of how we describe things, because even in our own language, how we have to describe something, it's a measure. We're trying to measure our experience. And in the measuring of the experience, we actually become disconnected to the actual experience.
I'm like the observer of it.
Exactly. So, I think when anybody comes, it's always really a re-education of how it is we have to start to define for ourselves just how to move forward, because even it's like what is good for you might not be good for somebody else,
Right.
but it's like it's just about your expansion and your growth. It's like, okay, and you might do something that might be not in the best light, but that also might be an experience that you need to have to break through that lesson. And I think it's like we just hold and feel the weight and bear this guilt and the shame of wanting to express ourselves, that when we're unable to, we're actually creating, we're bypassing what it is we're meant to, how we're meant to kind of walk on that path, because everybody's path is very different. You cannot compare it to anybody else but your own experience.
100%. Yeah. That's what I find so fascinating about what's happening right now in the world. And I mean, obviously, all of this stuff is being reflected in our own lives as well. And I have clients and people coming up to me saying, I don't know, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or I don't know what I'm doing right. I just don't know. There's just like so much uncertainty. And there's almost like what I'm picking up right now, especially the last couple of weeks, is kind of there's a little bit of defeatist kind of ness to it. And then also an exasperation and just a lostness.
Yeah.
And because there's not that sort of, we're so conditioned to think like, okay, I make a move this way, and then I get affirmation or some sort of validation that tells me I made the right move or the wrong move. And again, right and wrong is totally our subjective, imprint on that. But I guess my question for you is, how do you get out of that, this state of feeling lost or just not knowing where to go, and just trusting yourself to like make the move forward as you feel like you need to, based off of what your higher self or your intuition is telling you? But how do you get past that feeling of like, I just feel like I have nowhere to go. Like I have no idea what I'm doing.
I think the, surrendering is probably one of the hardest lessons that anybody can learn. And, it's also to surrender that this is destiny. You know, I think we all come here, you know, we know why we came here for this particular time. You know,
Mhm.
this pandemic didn't happen by chance. You know, it's like what's taking place in the world is an expansion. You know, but I think for us to realize too, it's like every experience and every relationship, you know, it's like when we were a star, we chose all the people, we chose all the players, we chose the teachers and the experiences and how the life would unfold. But it's up to us to be able to kind of awaken from that roadmap of how we've chosen to experience life and then to transcend it.
Mhm.
You know, I think you have to have tools. You know, we have to hold the collective. We have to raise the collective right now. And, you know, in those moments of just, you know, feeling lost, it's like also to be able to kind of look at the frequency that's taking place around you. You know, it's like at any moment you can change the dial, you know. And it's, I think some people really choose to live in a place of you know, it's like especially when that frequency and their environment has kind of reinforced depression, anxiety, feelings of lack and unworthiness, and you know, that frequency is really kind of captured and held within the body, and then you're radiating it, and guess what, the universe is then going to kind of project
Send it right back.
exactly. It's going to be like, that's the lesson you want. I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to keep giving it to you until you change the vibrational, you know, resonance of what the new life you want to be able to experience. You know, so it's just making a choice, you know, because it's like 1 second you're listening to 102 point anxiety and depression, and then all of a sudden you're like on the clear and easy and everything is epic, you know. But it's like you have to be able to like know how to um, move out of that, and kind of how do you bring more energy into your system, because you know, it's like, yes, you can change the dial and you can want positivity and you can want great things and you want to be able to manifest, but if your vehicle hasn't even been trained to hold the power of that new
Mhm.
frequency,
Yeah.
you won't
Mhm.
even be able to sustain it, and it might actually not even register, you know.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, that's okay. This is a really great question, too. I feel like because as we're talking about increasing frequencies and the way that you described your craniosacral work, it sounds like that's something that really you have to be in person for. Is that correct?
You know, yes, I think remote sessions are definitely possible, but there is a magic that takes place when, you know, you are touched and held, and the tissue is able to create a mechanical release. You know, there is in the same way that when the system becomes pressurized, and this takes place in any type of like biological or quantum model, you know, when the system becomes pressurized, there are two results that can take place. It can either collapse and go further into a restriction and that kind of holding pattern, or if that system is held in a way, it's going to expand and it's going to move beyond that pressurized state, and it's going to release and literally reset itself. And what takes place in a session is your body is able to go into a still point. Your nervous system is literally resetting itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And by being able to mechanically affect the cerebral spinal fluid and create these um, you know, barriers where the tissue is reconciling, do I want to hold on to the trauma that existed 10 years ago, or do I want to bring in breath for that space to come into its own again? You know, because it's like we're not only reconciling the experience that are taking place in this lifetime, we're reconciling previous lifetimes.
Right. Do your clients come in with an actual intention? Like, I I have like a mother wound that I need to work through, and the craniosacral is the modality that is speaking to me, or is it more of a
like a
um
maintenance. Like,
yeah, exactly.
tell me where I, like, kind of how the Reiki just goes where it needs to go.
Right, exactly. Because it's like if somebody receives craniosacral therapy, I'm curious, like, what is their homework, or how do they integrate what they received into their life?
I think there's a couple different types of, clients that come. There's some that are, very in touch with, yes, the mechanical and clinical aspect of what CST does, but then also, how it begins to soften even your behavior and your outlook and how it is that you operate through life. There are some clients, I mean, I had one client recently come in and, he wanted to come in to address the tension in his jaw. And, it's like in the moment of, just kind of like listening to his body and kind of reading it. It's like we also know that, okay, the jaw is it's the avenue of expression, how it is that you're able to express yourself in this life. And as I'm, kind of like reading his body, I could feel the essence of his mother on his left side, very fluid. I could feel the density and the obstruction that was taking place on the right side, which is a reflection of his father.
Oh, wow.
And, so it's like, he came in and that was it. I just want to address the tension that's in my jaw. And so it's like, as I'm adjusting him and, kind of like unwinding, I'm also speaking to this energy that I'm beginning to feel. And you always, there's always a gauge to see. It's like, okay, like how much is this person kind of willing to open themselves up to? And, it's like, it's like, does this resonate with you? And in that kind of revealing of these parental aspects that I was able to share with him, I also asked him, like, do you feel that you have to hold back? And he's like, all my life, and it's like, the body is always going to manifest a message and a code because we weren't able to listen to the higher self, and it's going to create that tension. It's going to create that resonance where it's like, okay, this is the area that you need to work. I have, it's like other clients that are like, hey, my wife told me to come in and see you, so it's like you get the degree of people that are, wanting to invest in a practice and want to be able to address trauma. It's like, just because somebody comes in and it's like, okay, like I have tension in my jaw, I also might be working, your feet. Your feet are actually a remote control for the rest of your body. I can, by particular trigger points on the foot, it's like, I know if your fire channel needs to be activated, and it's like, and also being able to kind of look at the energetic signature, like in the intake form of everybody that comes in. It's like, I want to know your astrological aspects, because that in itself is your cosmic blood level. It's like, if you know what it is that you're deficient in, no different than when you go and get your blood checked at at the doctor. It's like, it's information. It's information for you to know how to move forward.
Right. So you're like a body whisperer.
Yeah, I'm like, in my mind, I'm imagining you just like all your clear senses come on at the same time, and you're like seeing energy, and you're connecting to past lives, and you're releasing blocks, and it's like, and then physically being able to sort of like reset the body based on all of these incredible things that all come up in different areas at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, we have to be able to look at, the cosmological reflection of, it's like, you were a star at one point, and
Okay.
and
I'm so
And
glad
you,
you just said that. Sorry to
yes.
interrupt you. So the other day, I asked Ellen, I was like, okay, I'm wrapping my head around all of these like much bigger concepts that I've sort of probably never really truly considered up until relatively recently. And one is like, how is a star or a soul born? If we are all souls having a human experience,
Mhm.
where does that soul's incarnation come from?
One, it's like the other, to be able to kind of look at any person, the other is you, you know. There is no separation. Like that in itself is kind of like the biggest game we're all playing with ourselves right now. And, it's like the idea that, it's like when you kind of pierce the veil of the heavens and chose this particular geometry, which is, if you look at the kind of 2D blueprint of a natal chart, if you were to, kind of explode that into a 3D sphere and see your shape, see your kind of like geometric construction of how you come into human form, that is also then kind of reflected in your body. So let's see, how can I say? So, your natal chart is an orchestra of how these energies and archetypes live inside of you. It's either your organs, your chakras, the emotional intelligence, all of it is an opera. And the opera of the internal cosmos is a reflection of the heavenly cosmos. So it's like if you know that your moon is in Pisces, you're going to be emoting the oceanic depths of the collective in like a very keenly psychic way. If your moon is in Aries, you have the gravitas and the directional force of explosion. So it's like when you know how these coordinates are operating, it gives you an opportunity to then be in collaboration with these energies. I don't know if that was able to kind of describe your answer.
No, that actually really, it does help me a lot to understand that. Because I was like, well, what makes somebody a soul versus, a human versus, another star being or light being?
Well, we're all, we're all, as incarnational beings, we all have a soul. And, I think the age of our soul, are you a new soul? It's like you encounter people and it's like, oh, this is a new body for you. You've got a couple lifetimes to kind of figure it out. And there are others that like there's their wisdom. It's like either they okay, one of my teachers, it's like he says it's like I think like 60% of the people here are really just here to burn karma. And, it's like they're just kind of walking through life. And, that's kind of like maybe all they're going to do. They'll kind of continue the life death cycle. And I think the goal of our experience as humans is to be able to kind of transcend that cycle and to be able to ultimately step into a higher frequency of consciousness, because we are already outgrowing the limitations of what this world is offering us. And, for us to be able to effectively and, in practice, work with that and kind of teach people and train people that, it's like there needs to be a system in place for us to practice. And a lot of us we aren't practicing. We aren't coming back to ourselves. We aren't resolving the trauma. And, it's like when we're healing, when we take responsibility of our own healing journey, it's like then you're burning the samskaras. I mean, that's the gift of the human soul. It's like angels can only wish to have a human body because of the ability of us to be able to burn the karma. We come into this life with samskaras, we come into this life with karmic contracts, and it's like, especially, and I mean, I think even in this particular, being in lockdown, I think there are many people that are losing relationships, or friendships are beginning to kind of wash away, and you start to realize it's like, oh, these karmic contracts that I came in with are ending, and it's about kind of finding that new community and finding those teachers and those beings that are going to help support you into that higher frequency. Because right now it's like the vibration, there's a very low vibration that's taking place, and if you are being distracted by it, you're going to feel that helplessness, you're going to feel lost. And it's like, I think it's like we just have to you have to know how to pull yourself out of it.
Yeah, I think I mean, that I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I feel like half the battle is really recognizing that these things that we see in our world, in the name of justice, in the name of, improvement and right, I guess, I feel like some of those can actually be quite misleading, and they're actually meant to be distracting rather than, um, like these legitimate things that we should be focused on. And there's so much of it now. I feel like in every sector of our lives that it's become, I feel like that's really where the unclarity comes from. It's, who do I believe? Who should I trust? And all of that I'm starting to realize is almost kind of like meant to be, or is part of the whole process, because it's forcing us to really just turn inward and trust our own selves and listen to our own gut instincts and our higher selves and our intuition, because there is so little clarity as to who and what we should pay attention to on the outside.
Well, in addition to that too, it's a huge moment for us to really take in and learn this lesson of understanding what energy is ours and what is not, which is something that I feel like a lot of us are feeling really heavily right now, which feels like even the first step before you can get clarity from your intuition.
Right. And, and that's we're all under a hypnotic command right now, being locked in, it's like we are being spoon fed this information. And when we're hearing something over and over again, it's just reinforcing the state of hypnosis. So it's like, especially when the system is, I mean, we're all being traumatized right now. Like, our systems are being pressurized, and here we are having to surrender to our most primal necessity to survive. And if you look at any war, a war is not a war between two entities or two opposing sides, whether the war be through thoughts or through an actual physical war. There might be two factions that are fighting, but there's a third entity, and that entity is actually overlooking to see, it's overlooking the interest of why those two sides are being pitted against each other. So that's, I think, like where that kind of greater global agenda is taking place. It's like, look, it's like, look to see, especially if like one person is saying something and then the other person wants to debunk it. It's like, okay, maybe you got to do your own research, And I think it's so easy for us to kind of go into that zombie scroll and and then all of a sudden we're kind of like in this, we just start regurgitating what we see, and it's not even something that you believe. It's just this kind of like, literally somebody just kind of like pulsated some program into you, and there you are now projecting it to 10 people around you, like the first 10 people around you, is just so you can get it out of your system. But in that moment, you've already then imprinted them, and they're going to go and then imprint it to just another group of people. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's like, it's so important to think about these things. And it's, I'm so glad that you're here to help sort of articulate a lot of these trends that we're seeing come up, because I feel like even a lot of healers, and I include myself in this group as well, are really feeling it heavy, especially there are some days where I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, I'm like,
Yeah.
is this the Schumann resonance? Is this like, did I pick something up from somebody else? Is this just the collective energy right now? And it's like a constant sifting through that and just like regrounding.
Yeah. And it's
Mhm.
also being able to, it's like in watching the news, in having this experience, it's like, okay, like how do you begin to disconnect to this, uh, how we identify to our human narrative, because that human narrative is, it's like, yeah, like we chose where who our parents were, we chose where we were going to be born, we chose the color of our skin, we chose the gender, we chose all of that, and here we are now in this kind of, I mean, there is very much a war between light and dark. And, it's like how humanity is being pitted against each other. Wear the mask, don't wear the mask. The racial reckoning that's taking place, the civil injustice and the prevailing race issues. Like, we are becoming so hyper aware of the differences that inform the power control mechanism. And, this ultimately is becoming, we're conditioning ourselves for this kind of global control, and how do you reclaim that power back? We're all able to accomplish something in a fraction of the time right now, faster than what our great ancestors were able to do, faster than what our grandparents were capable of. And the energy right now is available to us. And it's here for a massive expansion. And, it's up to the collective. It's up to you. It's up to us to be able to get out of this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely. So, this, I want to just touch on something before we have to wrap up here, which is some of the other healing modalities that you offer. I mean, I think now, especially more than ever, people are looking for new ways to feel better. And I was reading about the raindrop technique, and I've heard about it on and off over the last year or so, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that. And then also what your remote sessions look like.
So yeah, I think with any offering, it's like you learn the protocol and then you make it your own. Like raindrop technique combines a combination of medical grade essential oils. It's a cadence of different plant medicine that includes antibacterial, antispasmodic, anti-tumor, antiviral. So it's all these really beautiful, nourishing principles and healing qualities of plant medicine that are kneaded and massaged into the tissue along the spinal canal. So it's Olympia. It's a cleansing. The points of contact are going to be much deeper. There's a spinal application of these oils with a particular technique for each that reorganizes and softens the central channel to awaken the Kundalini. So incorporating Egyptian medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and recoding an energetic grid on the body through different techniques. We're opening the full circulation, the fluid, the energy pathways, the meridians, the kind of elemental channels of how we're supposed to emote ourselves. And also, we're physically removing the charge of any trauma that has crystallized into the portion of the body that is then causing some type of structural dysfunction. But it still includes cranio, it still includes polarity, even within telemedicine. For the remote sessions, it's like I'm always going to be looking at three things. The presence of or the intelligence of a previous injury to a part of the body, the actual like amount of force that the body received, whether if it was emotional, energetic, physical, psychic, and then the presence of some underlying negative emotion or limiting belief at the time of the injury, because it's like all of those elements are actually going to it's a consciousness, and it's like we're always, and it's like when you're dealing with anybody in session, it's like you're treating the inner child. You're treating the inner child, and you're also treating the consciousness of those experiences that are still living within that inner child. And, it's like there's the energetic debris, the energy cysts, it's like all those imprint themselves and they linger until there's enough energy for the body to be able to move that out of the field. So it's like a session is literally, it's like, how do you like charging the body, turning on the circuit breakers? It's like I think of myself, I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, it's like I clean the house. It's like it's like you are a householder, and like how do we address every room in the house? I think it's like you can't really, it's not really a selling point to be able to kind of tell people that like, my interdimensional galactic team, or that I have a group of unicorns that are performing a psychic surgery. But yeah, I mean, when you come in for a session, you experience yourself far beyond how you've ever known your body. And, it's like you go to a place where, you're not here anymore. You go to outer space, or you go to, there's something really beautiful to be able to kind of witness that and hold that, that potential for anyone.
I'm totally coming over and knocking on your door.
I know. I'm like, what is happening here? I have to experience this.
And it's like, it's also dialogue. I think there's like a really beautiful, exchange. I mean, even just, like us having a conversation about this, it's like, this is, it's awakening people. People are able to kind of remember. There's an unwinding in the body that automatically takes place just by the heart opening up and being able to hear things and being confirmed of a way of life that, in the back of the mind, they've always known. They just didn't ever have somebody explain it or confirm it, or, it's like, they had that experience too. It's like, I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So many times I'm like, oh my God, if the me of even 6 months ago could hear what was coming out of my mouth.
I mean, I remember when I first started the practice, I remember like I had gone to, like, I think after the first month, I went to go see one of my teachers, and he's like, like, how's everything going? And I'm like, I don't know how else to explain it, but it feels like I'm on shrooms. And he's like, wait, what's going on? And he's just like, the carpet is moving, and there's this white fog that comes into the room, and I'm pretty sure that the plants are waving at me. And he was like, oh yeah, you're just stepping into the quantum field. And how he was able to make sense and kind of confirm all these kind of visual and sensory effects that I was witnessing. It's like, oh, I stepped outside of the construct and the matrix of this built environment. And I think when you're able to experience yourself in that kind of quantum landscape, you are geometry. There is a sacredness, there's light. It's like you're able to, I mean, everything has an aura. And, it's like you're able to see this river of interconnectedness that exists, even just the breath that is being shared in a room. It's fascinating. I mean, this is, it's a deep dive. I'm still like learning so much, and, I'm incredibly grateful that I'm, holding this space now.
Oh my gosh. The world is so lucky to have you. This is right up my alley. I'm always looking for your posts, because I'm like, what are we going to learn today? If you have the best information, it's like everything I ever wanted to know.
And I still feel, I'm like, oh, I know I definitely hold back too. So it's like, I think we all have to be gentle with ourselves and how it is that we want to, kind of share information. It's because some of it is so sacred. And I think it's like, yes, like right now, everybody wants to just, we're all just consuming information right now. And sometimes when you consume information but don't have a practice in place. There's a teaching within Kundalini: if you come with nothing, you leave with nothing. And it's like, and there's something very potent with that. It's like when the student is ready, when somebody is ready to heal, when somebody's ready to kind of change, it comes to a point of experiencing something so intolerable in their life, they need it, they have to have it. So it's like, it's like when I get that, when somebody slides into the DM or sends me that email where it's like they want a little bit more, it's like, all right, now you're ready. I'll share something with you that I might not share in that post, because it's like we have to be able to kind of retain some sacredness with these teachings.
Yeah. That's actually a really good reminder. Yeah.
So how can people find you if they want to learn more or book a session? I can't wait till we get to meet in person. Thank you so much for this. This has been such a great.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to share it.
My Instagram is at Ninaki, and then my website is atmalivpriya.com.
Amazing.
Yes.
And you do remote sessions, correct?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll do telemedicine, which is essentially a remote session. Like I still kind of, I look at your energetic signature. It's a little bit of a lengthier process because I think there's more dialogue that takes place in order for the body to really kind of, step into that space to unwind versus, when you come into the session, the space is held for you. Like there's already like an energetic grid system that's charged and ready to receive you when you come here. So it's like there's a little bit of, kind of, all right, I gotta send my team over to you and kind of like assess the field, and then we're going to begin.
Are you still doing in-person sessions right now?
No, I've been working throughout. It's like we're kind of we stay in compliance. We have the masks, but I didn't open this practice to not be available for people to do the work. And I think that was always something that, I kind of really like have stuck to my guns and really kind of dig my heels in, where, it's like, yeah, the lockdown is taking place inside, but the lockdown is not taking place, within our bodies and with our minds. And I am available for session.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah, I'm definitely going to hit you up.
Oh my gosh,
that
I know.
sounds so good.
So cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is like mind-blowing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
We're so grateful that the universe finally let us connect.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Totally worth the wait.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. I know.
And timing's never a coincidence either. So I feel like there's something about this conversation that needed to be like released this week.
Oh, I mean, what? The new moon is in Cancer, it's like that in itself is like the most kind of like, like we're healing those phobias that are, deeply held within us. And it's like, now it's like that Cancer energy is that like maternal love force, of just being able to kind of like reparent and repattern, our existence.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.